We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi everyone, welcome to another special edition of Weed Talk Now. I'm the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, Jimmy Young.
And I'm the founder of Cannabis.net, Kirk Dalton.
And we are so lucky to have alongside with us, all the way from South Dakota, Melissa Mentele. Did I do the last name right this time when I was under pressure?
Nope, it's Metley. It's okay though. It's better than mental. People get at that one too. So I appreciate not going in that direction.
And you said you have a lot of relatives, like 300, and everybody has a different pronunciation of the last name, right?
We do. I married into a family that doesn't know how to pronounce their last name, so they all wing it.
There you go. Always err on the side of caution with a mentally, just go safe.
Just go safe. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But didn't I write it down as Mentally? I did. There it is. It's just, looking at your notes and doing a million things at once just never happens. Okay, let's just keep it going because I don't want to redo the open. Let's just jump right into it. Melissa, what is the current situation with marijuana laws in South Dakota?
Ooh, that's a good question. South Dakota currently has the harshest marijuana laws in the United States. We do have a felony by possession charge, which is felony ingestion. So say I got off a plane today from Colorado and for some reason had a law enforcement interaction and had to give them a urine sample. That would be a felony for consuming cannabis in this state. Our laws are set up to fail immediately because we don't have small possession laws. We have basically, you can have 7 pounds and under, and it's the same charge. Ooh. So, yeah, it's tough. So South Dakota is in a dire need of some reform. We do need patient access, and we do need straight across the board open access to and for adult use. And so, yeah, we're number one for bad laws in our state on this one.
And what you explained to us earlier was the fact that you're in charge of the medical side of the question. There's 2 questions on the ballot. One is a medical cannabis policy amendment to the Constitution, the state Constitution, and the other is a adult use recreational. At this time, with 5-6 months to go, 4 months, I don't know, I lost track of the time during this whole COVID thing. How confident are you? What are your poll numbers looking at? And do you have any more money to spend on the campaign?
Well, good questions. So we have 2 issues on the ballot. We have the Constitutional Amendment A, which is adult use, which also has a section in it to ensure that hemp is allowed to be grown in the state of South Dakota. Our governor for the last 2 years has basically kind of set our farmers aside on the hemp issue. So we passed it this year, but still do not have any crops in our fields. And then Amendment A also does have protections for the medical statutory issue, which will absorb the statutory once they both pass. We are the first state ever to have both issues on the ballot at the same time, which I think is really exciting. And I think it's great because our state has been known to decimate voter initiatives. 2 years ago, they took apart I Am 22, which was our anti-corruption bill. And so that was a concern when we did ironic, huh? Anti-corruption. Let's just dismantle that. But so for the statutory, having Amendment A pass alongside it does give us those constitutional protections, and it does protect our patient program from being absorbed further down the line, such as happened in other states. And so it does keep them in 2 separate paths, and it does create 2 really strong programs for the state.
Hey, Melissa, how does this play in with Native Americans and tribal associations? What's South Dakota's stance, and what are tribes trying to do as far as cannabis within the state and getting permits? Are you working with them, or is this kind of a separate avenue to get legalization, or what are they up to?
Okay, so tribes are managed under federal law. So this year we have tribal partners that have put hemp in because their programs were approved by the USDA. And so we do have tribal hemp. We have 3 tribes in the state that have passed resolutions throughout their reservation to legalize cannabis, whether for medicinal use or for adult use. We do partner pretty heavily with the tribes in the state. We have great allies in them, and we support what they do and they support what we do. I always say that we take them off the island because currently with tribal laws, they are only within the reservations. Once our state law passes, they're able to transport and move their product, into our state shelves and also reservation to reservation. So we've had great relationships with the tribe ever since Flandreau had their grow facility here back in, it would have been 2016.
So are there tribes within the reservation growing and selling at a retail level?
Not yet. They're just starting to get up and running with that. I think everybody's pretty cautious after what happened with Flandreau. And so they're taking it slow but steady and making sure that they know all of their rights. With the Cole Memorandum and the Wilkinson Memo being taken away by Jeff Sessions, that did change things a lot for tribes and how they felt about their sovereignty and how they were going to take that path forward.
Part of my question had to do with how much money was spent, and I was looking at some notes, and it looks like you guys spent $1 million just to get the signatures and to get it onto the ballot. Like everything in America, sometimes it does come down to fundraising. Obviously, you're still continuing to raise funds, and I did happen to notice that you have skin in the game, Melissa. Way to go on that one. I think that was awesome.
Yeah, just a little skin in the game.
Well, it's $2,000. I'm going to say it. It's public record, okay? So you gave $2,000 of your own money because you believe so much in this cause, right?
I did. I actually have given $60,000 over the past 5 years. So my husband and we funded the issues prior to gaining partnerships with national partners. We wanted to try and do it grassroots, but we learned a very valuable lesson. $60,000 in the state of South Dakota on a ballot initiative is a penny in an ocean compared to what you need to actually make the ballot.
So you said 5 years and 60,000. What was your passion? I mean, that's a long time we're talking, even looking back on when Colorado went. Was it personal? Was it medicinal? Or kind of what got you in the game? That's serious. 5 years ago. What motivated both of you?
I worked in nursing up until 2012 when I had a patient accident. I was lifting a patient out of a chair and we went to go turn. She had Alzheimer's and got very nervous and threw herself back into the chair, and in the process caught my thumb on her belt loop. And when she did that, she hyperextended my left arm and destroyed my shoulder. So she pulled my bicep out of the attachment, tore my labrum in my shoulder in 3 spots, tore my hip, and herniated 5 discs in my back. Effectively, she ended my nursing career is what happened. And I am a chronic pain patient now because of that. But opioids and my body do not mix. They make me vomit. I have allergic reactions to them. So we started looking for an alternative and found a salve that actually worked to take the pain away and gave me some functionality in my hand. For about 2 years, I had a contracture where my hand bent forward almost in half and it faced up my arm and I couldn't use it and I wasn't able to use my arm. And so cannabis changed that for me and it made it very personal. We also have a daughter who has seizures. She grew out of them when she was little, but started working with patient communities and asking around and doing some research and found with epilepsy with children, it was really effective. And so it became personal on 2 levels for me. My daughter had her first set of seizures in 15 years a year ago. And so we have some serious skin in the game. I like to say we have a whole body in the game. It's something that I really believe in. And my husband was really nervous when I started this. We live in a community of 400 people. I'm not from a small town, so I don't adhere to small town politics or understand that you're supposed to act differently in a small town and apparently can't have political positions. But I just said, this is really important to me and I'm going to do it. And so I drug all 3 of my kids to a rally and he was mad at me for about a year, but here we are 6 years later.
That was my next question. When did he switch over and say, I'm going with you on this? So 3 years later?
No, he's still not switched over. It's been a hard road in our house. He's very conservative. this is terrible to say, but I married a Trump voting Republican, and I am a diehard Democrat from a Republican family that believes in, I'm very motivated to help in social issues, and social justice is big for me. And working in nursing and seeing so many demographics over the years that I've worked in mental health and Alzheimer's care, it was important. But he just knows better. He just knows that you can either be with me or be in my way, but if you're in my way, I'm probably just going to run you down and do what I want anyway. So he just provides support services, which means we get dinner maybe once a week from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping he has equal time when it comes to taking care of your children too. I really do kind of hope that's true. Is that true?
They're 21, 20, and 16. They don't even like us anymore, let alone let us take care of them. I mean,
did it ever come to a point in your house though where you wanted to use cannabis for the seizures and he's watching his daughter saying, I don't want to do this? Or was it, I see the results, let's do it?
She was old enough to make a decision without us and told us after the fact is how that worked. And
probably the best way to do it in that house.
Yep, it was. And for me, how do I say this without sounding like DSS needs to come knock on my door? I was appalled and absolutely elated because yes, I was like, you did such a good thing for yourself. And she's been seizure free now again. I mean, we went 15 years without anything, had 3 within a 2-day period. She did what she had to do, and she doesn't live with me anymore. She's engaged to be married and bought her own home. So it's not as though the use of cannabis did anything to detrimentally affect her life. She is an amazing kid.
And I'll tell you, there's nothing more amazing as a parent to have eventually get them to be adult people, adult children, and actually talk to them almost eye to eye, almost face to face. You can only get them to the 18, and then they're pretty much on their own. They have to make those decisions. So it sounds like you did pretty good there, Mom.
I think I did. I always say that. I'm like, wow, I didn't screw anybody up. We haven't paid for therapy. I mean, we're doing good. Everybody's got a job. Everybody graduated high school. I've got one graduating college in December. One, they're amazing kids. And, I've always been really upfront with them. And when I started cannabis advocacy, I had more big conversations with my children than I did with my husband about it. So
it can put a lot of strain on a relationship when there is a pro-cannabis and an anti-cannabis male and female, or male and male, or female and female these days. But point being, that can put a lot of strain on a relationship. Yes?
Yes, and it did, and it still does. But he's learned over the years that I'm really pig-headed, and if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And when we didn't make the ballot 2 years ago, he's like, well, are you done yet? I'm like, no, we're doing this. Like, I made a promise to a little boy in his family that we would not stop till his dad didn't have to commit a felony. And I'm going to keep that promise.
Do you want to walk us through that story, please?
Yeah. We have a family, the Hendrickson family, who has a son with Dravet syndrome. And we've worked with Elijah now. He started with us when he was 2.5 or 3, right under 3, in a wheelchair, made no eye contact. His dad would say he was just kind of this lump of a child. Started working with him. And back in 2016, sent him to Colorado, started helping their family do what needed to be done. And last year, I walked Eli into a meeting with me, made a promise to his dad that year that I would make sure that, he didn't have to commit a felony. He's a former police officer, and his wife is a nurse for the VA hospital. And he knew every day what they were doing. And I said, I can't watch this as being a mom who has had a child that has had seizures. My daughter had a cardiac and respiratory arrest with 2 of them. We almost lost her. I've been there. I know how hard it is for parents with children with seizures. And I told them, I said, George, I will not stop until this is legal. I will make sure that you do not have to worry about going to jail and your son, because the concern is when you have a special needs child that if they end up in foster care and a foster parent isn't able to care for them and adjust the monitors and the medications and doesn't know your child, that your child could end up dead. And that was their greatest fear, is that he would be taken away. And so I keep promises. I'm really big on that.
Well, you certainly kept your promise to come on this show, and I appreciate that. Kurt, I know you have another question because you're so good
you
at
have
that.
both amendments or ballots are both on. How can people, whether they're in South Dakota or outside, after hearing your story, support you? What is the best thing for them to do online, donation-wise? What can I do right now?
You can go to South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws. I'm actually going to look it up because I'm terrible about remembering it, and don't tell my boss that.
Well, I looked it up, and that's correct.
Good. I don't remember if it's a .org or a .com. That's my bad.
Well, if it's a nonprofit, it's probably a .org.
.org. So South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws.org or newapproachsouthdakota.org. We have two websites. You can make a donation through either one of them. We will have a merchandise store up next week. So if you want a really nice shirt to support both issues, we do have those. We have yard flags. We have hemp hats that are really awesome. So, you get to rock a piece of history is what I tell people. Is South Dakota is the reddest state in the nation. In fact, my Instagram handle is Red State Advocate because of that. Our soil bleeds red. So this is a chance for people to really look at our state for once and buy something that we're going to make some history. We're not going to be last in the nation. We're going to be first in the nation to pass both, hopefully. Crossing my fingers, knocking on wood.
What are your numbers say now about the support you're getting?
Numbers are really good.
I mean, you must be having a poll. Somebody's taking a poll out in South Dakota, right?
There's been lots of polls done in South Dakota, but for some reason, I did not get. We have our big meetings on Tuesdays, and last Tuesday we only kind of talked about this, and I didn't get poll numbers. But polling is phenomenal for medical. Medical is a slam dunk. However, adult use, we're gonna struggle a little bit, but we're just gonna keep doing the best that we can and being honest and transparent and having hard conversations. In South Dakota, we've done some things differently. Like we went to the South Dakota Chamber and to like the Sioux Falls Chamber and all of the chambers of commerces and approached them with this as a business and a compassionate business. And for the first time, I think ever, the chamber for the state didn't come out in opposition to a medical cannabis bill. They came out as neutral, which was pretty amazing. And that included all three health systems for our state.
If on midnight voting night you go 1-1, you win the medical and lose the rec, how do you feel?
Torn and scared. We'll be honest with you. After what they did to I Am 22, we're scared. We're scared that if we don't pass both of them, they will take out home cultivation or remove our caregiver program or change the bill into something it wasn't intended to be. And that's scary for us. Fortunately, we have had the same language legislatively sponsored in its entirety twice. So it has went through legislative session 2 times. But having both of them not pass does create a little bit of nervousness and a little bit of fear. And our patient families are very concerned that, most of them would never support adult use. It's not on our radar, but having the ability to know that we have some constitutional protections is really, really important.
How frustrating is it as an American citizen when you know for sure that this is the right thing to do for our humanity, and you still have to educate and sell that to your legislator? People that are supposed to be listening to what the populace wants and still resist change.
It's frustrating. We do gigantic call-in and letter writing campaigns during legislative session. We actually start a few weeks prior to them going in and run it all the way through, and then we do a lobby day. But it's very frustrating to have people look us in the face and say, nope, that's political suicide. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't care if it's political suicide for you. What you're supposed to do is grant and represent us, the wishes that we have. So if your political career stops at being a South Dakota senator or a South Dakota House member, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not here to take you to Congress. I'm not here to make you governor. I'm here for you to listen to what I'm saying to you because you took a job to represent us. And I feel that if they don't need to go anywhere else politically. I mean, you failed the first test you had, and that was to represent your constituency.
We have a similar situation in Massachusetts, maybe with our government and our governor and recreational. A lot of feet dragging and not listening to what people told him. And he wanted to do his, wasn't a fan, and dragged a lot of feet and slowed everything down for years, really. So we can relate a little bit.
And go ahead, Melissa.
Well, with the medical, after the first year of being in peer, so when I started doing legislative policy work, I went to peer. I'd never been there before. I didn't know the House, the Senate. I didn't know who anybody was. I basically went up there and was like, let's just put this to bed. Let's legalize medical marijuana. Let's all go back home, and we're just going to have this happy, hunky-dory, very Pollyanna approach to it. And I got kicked in the teeth and learned some very hard lessons that first year. But what we did do is, if you look at our medical bill, it ended up being 25 pages, 95 sections. I call it drawing pictures and using crayons. So hopefully there's no feet dragging, because we didn't leave anything open for them to drag on. We gave them a literal roadmap from the day it passes and step by step, every single thing they need to do, all the way to Jack's Law at the very end of it to implement a program for our school children. We did all of the work for them. I don't know if either of you have had the chance to read the medical bill, but it is one of the most comprehensive that the United States has ever seen. It's a big bill, and we wanted to make sure that we covered everything. And I went to the governor, and I went to the Department of Public Safety, and we went to the Department of Health, and we said, we are going to do this. We are going to take it to the ballot. You tell me now what you want before we take it to the voters, because once we're there, you don't get to make changes. So give me your wishes now. And we had good conversations, and we adjusted to things that they thought were important, and we changed those.
One of the themes of the last few months as America's gone through this whole COVID-19 thing is the fact that cannabis might be in a position to benefit, to kind of restore the economy, expand the economy with jobs. Are you sensing any kind of help from the COVID-19 pandemic in your grassroots campaign?
Whew, that's a big question, because right now it's just killing us. They canceled every event that we would normally do, every fair, parade, everything. I don't want to say COVID has been a benefit. I think it has made many of us see, and basically everybody in America see, that we live in a country that is so, a pandemic puts us on economic collapse. We need to have a more sustainable economy that we're doing, whether it be statewide or federal wide, that has jobs, that is sustainable through a pandemic. And, one of my biggest things is we've had lots of great conversations about funny money, and how during a pandemic, we've seen so many people that live off credit lose everything. Because they don't have actual resources. They're just kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I think cannabis gives people more of a stable ground, because you can create a business out of it. And it doesn't have to be a big corporation. It could be a small mom and pop business. You can do small scale cultivation for some dispensaries. You can have a small dispensary, but it is something that can support your family. And I think now with COVID, a lot of people are understanding that sustainable jobs and the ability to support your family without slashing a credit card is super important.
I don't know if I told you or Isabel told you how this whole thing came about, but one of our partners in distribution is the podcast out of Washington, D.C. called Vote Pro Podcast. And, when you do a podcast, you get to see where your downloads come from. And they've been in like 36 countries, and 49 states in the United States have downloaded their podcast, except for one. That would be South Dakota. Yes. So we're hoping...
Melissa might be the first tonight.
That's right. Well, it's a Vote Pro podcast. They're great guys, and, they contribute to our weekly news video as well. I hope...
No, we're number one.
You know what? I give Melissa a lot of credit. She's trying to change and be part of history. That's one of the reasons why I built this little venture of mine too, is I recognize that we are part of a historic time. And this was way before the pandemic. And now, we're right in the middle of that, or at least we're trying to come out of that. And now we're moving forward and trying to figure out what that, and I hate to use the term, that new normal is going to look like. Kurt and I talk about this a lot on our show whenever we do get together, and none of us really know what's going to happen in November. Okay, we really don't. I mean, I was shocked when it happened 4 years ago. And I guess we all kind of learned our lesson, at least up here in the Northeast. And I know you probably guess which way I lean. I don't know what's going to happen after November. But the fact that you guys are out there pounding the pavement and pushing the envelope and trying to get this movement going, I give you so much props, so many props. I wish I could write you that check to equal at least what you guys put in, but I'll give you a forum. I will give you the forum and let you again tell us how people can get involved to help this cause. Because if South Dakota can turn it around, what's left? Nothing, right? I mean, we can take on the world.
I tell people that all the time. If we can pass this in South Dakota, we can get federal legalization through and federal banking so we can put our money somewhere. Thank you. Thank you about the history comment. South Dakota is a hard state, and it's been a journey here. And I think you're right on the money. We don't know what's going to happen in November. My husband and I, I'll say my husband and I, just for credit for him, but I bought a farm a month ago, a little 2-acre farm, because what if the whole world burns down in November? I mean, it could happen.
It's not 1%, it's not 1%. You're right.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know.
No, and we are, we talk about new normal, and we're supposed to be on this downward trend of flattening the curve, and then we have the highest numbers and months come out a couple days ago, and then we've got Texas back on stay-at-home orders and California going back on them. We just don't know, and I think that for South Dakota, our biggest thing, if we have South Dakota listeners, I'm going to say this: fill out your absentee ballot request. That is so important. Make sure you're registered to vote. Fill out the absentee ballot request and vote absentee, because in November we may have murder hornets. We don't know. We could have earthquakes that split the United States in half.
The locusts are coming.
Exactly. Then you don't even have to go outside. I will send you the stamp.
We're all smiling about the 10 plagues right now. I just want to say that's really not something I want to deal with right now. On top of everything else, one more South Dakota quick story. And I was a history major many moons ago, and Kurt always has this thing whenever we have cannabis guests on to you know where I'm going with this, Kurt.
Yeah, it doesn't end well for me.
No, it doesn't. Who if you had a Mount Rushmore of weed, who would you put on the Mount Rushmore of weed? And I'll be admitting this, I did not know that Mount Rushmore was actually in South Dakota. So I admit that, and I have learned that. Now that I've given you a little time to think about that, have any? Would you like to nominate someone for the Mount Rushmore of weed? At least one person, perhaps. You have a shot at it, by the way, in your state. I want to tell you right now.
I have to say this: I would nominate nobody, because I think that there are so many people that have gotten into this that did it for reasons that were really close to our hearts, and that goes for all of the friends I've made nationally. Nobody that I work with got into this because they wanted to be recognized or they wanted to be famous for cannabis. People got into this because they wanted to change people's lives. And any person that I know personally that I would say deserves that honor would be offended that I said that, because that's not what they're here for. So I would leave the mountain in its beautiful natural state, and we take our souls to bed every night, and most of us know what we do and what good we do. So I think that's good enough for a lot of us.
Well, we salute your efforts. We support them. It's been a pleasure having you on this show to talk and enlighten us Northeastern liberal Democrat snobs, if you will. I'll admit it, okay, and I feel very guilty about it. There might be hope in South Dakota after all, and I really hope that in this particular case, you win out and you go 2-0, not 1-1, 2-0.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Come in November. If we don't have the 10 plagues of the world, you're welcome to come hang out with us on election night and see. It's being part of history. You could podcast live from our offices.
I might buy Jimmy a ticket for that November night to South Dakota. You better watch it.
Come on.
I will tell you.
That's what you wish for, Melissa.
I will.
I'm not scared.
I will make
I
a
definitely
note.
know you're not. No, you are not scared.
I will
Not
make
at
a
all.
note.
I will make a note to check on that for sure. And again, we wish you the best of luck. And of course, you did mention something I'm just going to reiterate again. The most important thing when it comes to an election, especially in this one, is to vote. Perhaps the greatest thing that might happen in November is that we have the largest turnout of voters in my lifetime, because it boggles my mind when I find out that, only, 45% of the whole voting voted. That makes no sense. You talk about what people have sacrificed. People die for that, okay? We want to make sure that those people that are over the age of 18 get out there and cast their ballots one way or another, because that is what this country is all about. So, Melissa,
I have one last thing to share with
you
that.
Go, girl. Go ahead.
So South Dakota, for absentee ballot applications, we are at 4 times right now what they were in 2016. So we are at over 100,000 people that have requested to vote absentee. We're making history with that right now. Our Secretary of States and our county auditors were blown away. So
Good.
Yep. I think voter turnout is going to be big this year. So I'm excited.
Certainly.
All right, well, that'll do it for another edition of Weed Talk Now. I am the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, Jimmy Young.
And I am the founder of Cannabis.net. And thank you, Melissa, for joining us on this episode.
Thank you,
Best of
guys.
luck in South Dakota.
That'll do it. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. And see you next time on Weed Talk Now. Weed Talk Now, Weed Talk News, and In the Weeds are all available on most major podcast distributors like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and our friends at clnsmedia.com and our flagship, Cannabis.net. So subscribe, share, and like our videos on all the social media networks out there, including LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the WeedTube, and YouTube. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge, and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.